Alright, so I finally got my old unit patch in, my old company patch from when I was in the Marines in 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines Fox Company, and that was our old logo. I'm really excited to actually get that in and sew it onto my vest. So what I'm going to do is use my table I built and kind of show how I use neodymium magnets to hold things in place instead of pins. I just stick them to the flywheel here. They're very difficult to get off, but they do stick well to each other and they don't leave marks on your patch. So, and they stick nicely to the machine when it gets close enough if you need somewhere to put them. So let me get these separated real quick. I'm actually going to put them down here on these screw heads. Alright, I'm going to move this table extension out. This Milwaukee leather vest has a removable runner, or the zipper that comes out, so you can actually slide it up underneath everything to get it going. And I am going to use Velcro on this. I went ahead and, I don't know if you can see it too well, but I traced with chalk the circle that I'm going to use. I'm going to push this table back up under it to hold everything flat. Be something to work on anyway. Go. So with this being a round piece and trying to chase it around with just the single walking foot, I'm going to go in a straight, kind of a cross pattern first and then go around in a circle. So just making sure everything's out of the way. I'm just working with the leather. I'm going to start it back here. And just go straight up with this. So we're going to drop the needle roughly in the center. Back stitch that. I'm going to hold the rest in place with these magnets. So slide one magnet up underneath, the other one on top. Same thing on the other side. And that gives me the ability to move it around if I need to, but I'm right in my circle. I don't think that chalk's going to show up super well, but it's okay. That slightly. I'm going to back stitch it. That's what I really like about the 360 rotating head, is you don't have to sit here and move the workpiece back and forth. Okay, pull some slack out. All right, take your magnets off. A lot of times they'll stick to your machine for you and kind of get out of the way. But I'll stick them to the heads of screws so that way I can get to them real easily. And I don't need them now since I've got the first stitch ran through. So now I'm going to go ahead and move this off. This bottom bottom side and top side. Make sure we have our excess hanging off. And then we'll come back around, making sure that the backer's not in the way. And this time we'll start side and go across. I'm making a cross pattern just to hold the Velcro exactly where I want it before I sew around the edges of it. Otherwise it'll end up having a higher chance of bunching up in an area that you don't really want it to be. So we'll pull it nice and flat. Always double check and make sure you're not going through the wrong area. We're going to come straight toward me. So I'm going to drop the needle in, drop it down. Back stitch it, lock stitch it. And you can kind of see where you're going if you use a pin. If you have the regular walking foot, you can just put it right up on the end of it and see what direction it's going to go. So I can tell if I want to slightly move, I can see which direction it's going to be going. Rotate it around. Okay, now that I've actually got it on there, I feel comfortable enough to go ahead and start stitching around. So what I'm going to do is come back on this lock stitch. Right when I get to the edge, I'll start walking it around the whole edge of it. Square that up a little bit. Now on the edge. Now I can actually start going around. Well, it looks like I'm going to have to go ahead and reload my bobbin. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the slack out of the top, raise the foot. Yep, run out of my bobbin. That's no big deal, we'll just pick off where we left off. So let's just take a second and just go a second to show you how to reload the bobbin. I keep a few already wound, and they go in. Make sure your thread goes in clockwise. And I just like to use a needle. Make sure this is at the 12 o'clock position. And I'll pull that right out. Looks like the thread actually still there, just broke. So I'm going to go ahead and just re-thread it through. It helps to have a little seam ripper so you can grab hold of the thread. Let's cut the end of that off since it broke a little bit. And every time that you do this, you always want to check with a scrap piece of leather or scrap piece of vinyl or whatever you have to make sure your stitch looks like you want it to and that you have proper tension. The last thing you want to do is just start immediately sewing on something, even if you just get interrupted, because it could actually be set up incorrectly. So we're going to go ahead and get the bobbin thread through passes. Okay, bobbin threads through, and I will check the tension. I'm not going to lock stitch this one. I'm just going to go through and look and make sure it's not pulling through. That appears to me. So this is the line we're looking at. I don't see anything from the top coming through the bottom, and everything from the bottom is staying on the bottom. Not everything looks good. Stitching placement looks good. Every once in a while the thread will break, but it's pretty easy to get back to sewing. So it's definitely not the end of the world. Reach this through here. And it looks like it stopped right here, so I'm going to go back at roughly ½ inch. And restart. I'm going to say it's starting to bunch. I'm going to go ahead and rip that off. Start back a ways. Forgot to set my table up, so it was. It started to bubble right there. I want to take that and replace it. So I want it to be here. So if it's going to be bubbling or trying to walk and bubble, I'm going to start halfway through there and eliminate that from the possibility. Start in the center where that is slightly raised. Right on the edge. Make sure I'm not binding anything. That's staying pretty flat. Rotate. Looks good. Alright, the last quarter. Make sure that's not going to bubble up. So I'm going to push my table in just a little bit more. Make sure nothing's hanging. Back around, so we're going to log stitch it in. Alright, so now it's on there. We can clean up all the threads that need to come off where we started and stopped. Raise the presser foot, pull the tension, and pull the jacket off. There we go. So look at it when it's on. Make sure it sits flat, sits nice and flat. Look at it with the patch on. I want to make sure it's straight with the other patch. Alright, that looks good. And then I'm going to go back around and stitch this on to where it holds it nice and tight and it can't be pulled off. But I like the Velcro because let's say if it was just slightly off, all I gotta do is peel it off and then reset it. So looking at it from my perspective, I'm gonna look, make sure that everything is lined up perfect. Eagle wings, that's it. Well, that's what I've got so far, and I'm going to go ahead and stitch around and put this on there before it's all said and done. So thank you for watching, and I hope this helps.